Salesforce is a multi-tenant cloud. This means multiple customers share same resources of Salesforce application server. It is very similar to having multiple tenants in a house. These tenants can have access to common areas like living room, kitchen, laundry room, or garage. This is very likely that these tenants can have some disputes over using these common areas. Some tenants might utilize these areas more than others. So there has to be some set of rules to ensure all tenants get fair access to these areas. In Salesforce term, these rules are called governor limits, which is to ensure that no customer can abuse the use of resources, and irrespective of the business size, you get access to same cloud resources. So it doesn't matter if you are a small company of 10 people or if you are a big multinational company with 1000 plus users. Both these companies should get access to fair amount of cloud resources. So let's say Salesforce has two customers on same server. First one is Umbrella Corporation and another one is Stark Industries. The Umbrella Corporation had a big release on this weekend and the release went well. But soon after the release, they have noticed that their applications are running on forever loop. They have started eating up most of the cloud resources. And since Stark Industries are also on the same server and they are using the same resources, it's no surprise that they have started noticing performance degradation on their applications as well. Now this was a very practical scenario that can happen with any business or any Salesforce customer. And Salesforce must have some governing rules to avoid this from happening. And for that purpose, Salesforce has governor limits all over the place to avoid misuse of these resources. Some of the limits are transaction based, which applies to the resources being consumed per transaction, like number of SQL queries that you can execute per transaction or maximum time that a single transaction can take to finish. Other limits apply to your Salesforce org, like the number of emails you can send on daily basis or the number of bulk jobs that you can run in 24 hours. As I said, Salesforce has governor limits all over the place. There are governor limits per transaction basis. There are governor limits that applies to the Salesforce platform itself. There are governor limits that roll over on daily basis or on the 24-hour usage basis. And this page right here is a comprehensive guide to know about all the governor limits in Salesforce. So if you want to know about per transaction based Apex limits, then you can come to this section. And the first limit that you will see is about the SQL queries. So in a single Salesforce transaction, you can only execute up to 100 SQL queries if it's a synchronous transaction. And everything that we have covered so far in this course is synchronous. We haven't reached to asynchronous Apex yet. So this means whatever you have done so far, you could only execute maximum of 100 SQL queries in a single transaction. Then there's limit about number of records that you can retrieve by all the SQL queries in a single transaction. So you can retrieve up to 50,000 records, no more than that. Then we have limits about SOSL queries as well. You can execute up to 20 SOSL queries in a single transaction, and you can retrieve up to 2000 records from a single SOSL query. Then we have limits on DML statements. So you can run up to 150 DML statement in single transaction. And all these 150 DML statements can change or update up to 10,000 records in Salesforce. So this involves, creating the records, updating the records, deleting the records, and there are few special statements like emptying the recycle bin or approval processes. And along with this, there are other limits as well, like there is a limit on heap size. So one single SQL transaction can utilize 6 MB of heap. Then we have a CPU time limit as well, so which is 10,000 milliseconds or 10 seconds. So when you write Apex code, you need to adhere to these governor limits and you need to keep these governor limits in mind so that you don't hit these limits, because as soon as you reach any of this limit, your code will stop executing and you will see an exception. So always make sure that you bulkify your code and avoid hitting any of the governor limits. Now apart from this per transaction based Apex limits, there are Salesforce platform limits as well, like the number of callouts or number of async transaction that you can perform in 24 hours, and the number of synchronous transaction that can be running on the Salesforce platform at the same time, and there are other limits as well. So go through this page and understand as many governor limits as you can. Try to hit these limits from your code and then improve your solution so that you don't hit these limits again. In this section, we are going to cover some of the most important governor limits that a Salesforce developer must know and how you can write better code to avoid hitting these limits. We will also learn some of the key concepts like what is a transaction and the bulkification in Salesforce. So I'll see you guys in the next videos.